I got a hemorrhoid for the first time in my life.
Oh,
And
this is not where I expected the things to go when I asked this question, but please continue. Well, welcome to the Hunt Backcountry podcast, presented by Exo Mountain Gear. This podcast and the gear that we produce at Exo Mountain Gear share the same purpose: to make you a more capable, confident, and successful backcountry hunter. Straight to the point, no fluff, and no BS. This show is all about providing you with valuable information from experienced hunters. To learn more about the podcast or about our backcountry hunting packs, please visit exomountaingear.com. Well, welcome you guys to episode 75. Our guest tonight is Ryan Callaghan from First Lite. If you don't know Ryan from his work with First Lite, you also might know him from the Meat Eater Show with Steven Rinella, where he has appeared in multiple episodes. Ryan is always a ton of fun to talk to. He always has great stories, good advice, and just love his perspective about hunting and conservation. In addition to all that, we dive into the First Lite lineup for 2017 and hear about what's new for both men and women. First Lite continues to innovate, continues to bring new products, and this year, a new camouflage pattern to the market, and we talk all about that, as well as some of Ryan's hunting adventures from years past. Before we dive into that, I want to give a copy of Ryan Kleckner's Long Range Shooting Handbook away to one of you. If you guys have been tuning in to the Building a Backcountry Rifle series, you know all about this giveaway. If you're new to the podcast, haven't heard about it, here's how you enter, here's how you learn more about this. Go to exomountaingear.com/shooting book. You'll have a chance to win one of 10 copies of Ryan's book. We've already given away 5. This week we're giving away number 6 to Kyle Shaver. If you guys are hearing this, you have until the end of May 2017 to enter this giveaway. We're giving away 10 copies. That means there's 4 more up for grabs in the next 4 weeks. So go to exomountaingear.com/shooting book to check that out. Okay, let's dive into this episode with Ryan Callaghan and our friends at First Lite. Well, Ryan, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, we were just talking a bit offline. You're covered up in construction dust and doing some home remodeling. Steve, I know you just went through that as well. Is your project done?
Yeah, all the upstairs got remodeled and all taken care of.
Nice.
It's done?
It's done, yeah.
Like there's not like one section of trim that you didn't paint or...
Well, Steve had
no, I gotta
help, right?
I did have some help. I gotta finish the railing. That's about the last thing. Railing going up the stairs.
Yeah, so it's not done.
It's not
just,
done.
Is any project
make me
ever
feel
done?
better.
You got me.
I just did a bunch of like drainage work in my yard, and we just got an inch plus of rain last night, so it was like glorious to see all this water flowing. So it's nice when you actually do a project, and even though it's not fully done, you like get to reap some of the reward of it. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool.
No, very fulfilling.
Yeah. So Ryan, I'm sure that the vast majority of our listeners are familiar with First Lite and probably familiar with you, whether that's from First Lite or seeing you, hunt with Steven Rinella on Meat Eater or something like that. But we also have new guys listening all the time who are new to hunting. So go ahead and give us some history, some context on both First Lite as a company, kind of what sets them apart kind of in the hunting apparel space, and then kind of your history with First Lite and what you're up to these days.
Yeah. So kind of the quick, dirty version of the First Lite history is Ken Carruth and Scott Robinson are the 2 founders, and they got things rolling about 2007. And really the concept and niche that they were trying to fill was bringing merino to the hunting world. And through Kenton's research and just, guys got this very OCD ability to research things that he's interested in. like crazy gear guy. He was the first person to figure out how to put intricate patterns on merino wool. So we're the first company to ever put camouflage on merino. And, you know, in this neck of the woods, certainly the Rocky Mountains, you end up hunting in your base layers the vast majority of the time. So, you know, that was pretty major breakthrough. And, you know, merino's this magical material that just controls body temp better than anything else. Like, just makes it easy. So that's where we started. And then 2011, we were approached by a company called 37. Now they're called 37.5. They went by Callaghan at the time, and they're you know, an outerwear, really like a synthetic fiber technology company. But their whole tech is based off of merino wool. And so it was this really natural fit. And that's when First Lite went from trying to be, I guess you could say, like the smart wool of the hunting category to an actual technical clothing line. Like starting down the path of being able to outfit somebody from head to toe for an entire, you know, 10-day hunt. And yeah, so since that winter of 2011, 2012, we've been looking towards like the whole layering system, and the 37.5 technology is amazing stuff because it's all about the same properties that merino gives you, which is, you know, unbelievable temperature regulation, moisture mitigation. And so, you know, I tell people that, you know, there's a lot of good clothing out there. But I truly think we have the only true system, because every fiber that we deal with is based off of the merino wool base layer. And there's just nothing out there that was built kind of brick by brick the way our stuff was. So, you know, super efficient moisture management system. You know, you don't have to be sweating up a storm in order to reap the benefits like a Gore-Tex type of material, because the way this stuff's put together, it works if you're active or inactive. And nothing else on the market does that. So, you know, obviously the product testing part of things is the fun stuff. And I truly, at this point, probably something I should revisit, because I'm not like the most fashionable person, but, you know, not a day goes by that I'm not wearing, you know, merino wool First Lite all the time. So, and yeah, I don't, you know, it's a simple system. I think that definitely separates us from the pack. We're really overanalyze and really critique on trying to keep the line as trim as possible. You know, not having too many options out there, because there's just so much overlap in all these different clothing systems that you see. And, you know, the line that we always use when we're working on product is, we want to solve problems, not solve problems to questions that never should have been asked.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's what you get when you're inside all the time, like trying to figure out product. It's like, well, what would happen in this situation? Well, this could possibly happen. And you get into all these weird tangents, you know, and it's like, well, what if aliens came down and carried us all away?
Right, yeah.
You got to get outside and use the stuff. And that's where we see the, you know, it's a cool little office, you know, we're like 13 people now. And, everybody's super active in a bunch of different sports, bunch of different activities. So it's not just hunting 24/7. It's mountain biking, skiing, everything awesome about living in the Rockies throughout the calendar year. So we're always working on everything, not just the new stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear about the streamlined lineup, because it seems like for some companies, they're headed the other direction and getting so specialized, where it's like, well, if you're hunting, mule deer on August 31st at 10,000 feet, you need these pants. But if you're hunting elk on September 5th at, 9,000 feet, you should wear these pants. And it's getting a little bit crazy with how I think the idea of something technical, something specialized, and something that fits a specific application is just, in some ways, going off the deep end.
Yeah, man. And, if you looked at it from a biology standpoint, the more specialized you get, the closer you are to extinction. Like, this stuff, we live in like these incredibly, changing environments. So what's the point of getting super specific? It ultimately just doesn't work for you. And you start looking at product descriptions, and this is all over in the outdoor world, not just in hunting, but you start looking at product descriptions and they're cutting things down to 20-degree temperature gaps. And, as you guys know, it's like we can see 60-degree temperature swings.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to bring 3 jackets with you? Like, it's just crazy. So,
yeah.
Hey, Ryan, can you cut you off, Mark? Can you go back and elaborate on, you said 37.5 works at like the 2 different temperature ranges or across the board, and Gore-Tex is only when you're really sweating?
And I'm not knocking Gore-Tex. Gore-Tex is amazing stuff.
Right.
But you have to build a certain amount of pressure, humidity inside, from next to skin, in between your shell and your skin, in order for that stuff to breathe. Whereas with the 37.5 technology, it's not just a moisture barrier or a waterproof breathable membrane. All the fibers are treated with carbon, this active carbon, and it's sealed to where it stays active. And just like with the Gore-Tex or anything else, you need to wash the stuff, keep it clean, or cleanish. And so basically you have this super porous carbon, creates an incredible amount of surface area. The model that they always use is like, if you have a glass of water and you set it on a table, and you have a glass of water and you spill it across the table, which one's going to evaporate faster? Mm-hmm. And it's the spilt water, because it's spreading itself super thin. And that's what this carbon does. It's got so much surface area, it's actively pulling moisture. And it doesn't need, you're always sweating. And that carbon's kind of always thirsty for that moisture. So it's taking it and it's moving it across a giant surface area. And I think that's why our whitetail jackets work so well. Is breathability is not something that's addressed in the whitetail market at all. Because it's like, well, why would you use it? You're not active, but your skin's always producing moisture. So eventually you're going to get all clammy. But as you know, Steve, like if you sit long enough on a cold day, like you'll see frost form on the outside of your jacket.
Yep.
And that's just sitting behind glass, right? So, And that's just kind of the system. And it's kind of like one of those aha moments that you get if you run the system. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know the difference between that and Gore-Tex. That's cool.
Yeah. In this waterproof, breathable membrane world that we live in, you definitely do kind of have to look at what you're going to be doing. If you're, a super active person and you're going to be cruising and that's just the way you like to hunt, you can get away with, even in really wet conditions, you can get away with a jacket that isn't as waterproof, because you're going to be producing a lot of heat from the inside and it's going to be, pushing moisture out. But, if you're kind of a spot and stock type of person, you're going to be inevitably stuck in certain spots for a long time. And you're going to need something that's way more of a moisture barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, this leads great into a topic that I wanted to address, and that's kind of, getting really nitty-gritty on products, which I wanted to do in certain areas, and this is one of them. But kind of walk us through as we look at the First Lite lineup and everything that's offered and get into, outerwear and rainwear. You guys essentially have two options there, and that's the Vapor Storm Light and the Seek Storm Tight. Guys can look at those and see some obvious differences, such as the weight of the pieces, and kind of think, oh, well, one's going to be more durable, things like that. But really talk us through a guy considering both of those options, what they should be thinking through, some of the performance differences, and how a guy should best decide which one's right for him.
Yeah, I mean, that is, so your Storm Light is definitely like what I think of as, of course, this is where I hunt the most, but it'd be like Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, right? So it's typically during hunting season, we're not in a lot of big deluge rainstorms that are going to be around all day long. We're just kind of weathering the storm, and that's where the Storm Light fits in. It's a great part of your backcountry kit because it absolutely weighs nothing. In fact, when we were testing them, I had 2 in my pack the entire season and never even knew it. And then when I was cleaning out my pack at the end of the season, I had an extra rain shell in the bottom there because it just weighed nothing, And it's a great wind barrier. Obviously, because it is a shell, it'll definitely lock in a certain amount of heat. So you can definitely kind of incorporate it as, if you're trying to go light, you can definitely incorporate it as a warming layer too. But it's like, on the move. If it's a downpour, it's on the move jacket. As long as you're producing heat, it's going to be great. Most guys are going to be tucked up underneath like a big fir tree or something on a really nasty storm. And that's what this thing's for. It's just like weathering that storm. Super light layer. It's an emergency shell that you can always keep in your pack and never worry about it. But man, it is a great performer because it cuts the wind great. Definitely waterproof. But it's like that intermittent jacket. Whereas you get to the Seek, and you got to keep in mind too, we're talking about a pretty major bump up in price. All of a sudden we're at like the $450 range, and we go from a 2-layer jacket to a 3.5-layer jacket, and this thing is like, I promise you, it is as waterproof as you will ever need. Like, if you duct tape your cuffs, it'd be like a dry top. I've put it through hell and back in BC and Alaska, and it is a bomb-proof jacket. So crazy durable, super waterproof. And very lightweight for a 3.5 layer jacket. So that'd be definitely like a workhorse style jacket. Places where you're going to be wet: Oregon, Washington coast, BC, Alaska, and it is burly. I really tell most folks to buy it in a solid color, just to stretch your buck a little bit, because I ski in it all the time. It's an awesome ski shell.
That's great. Yeah. I do the same thing with my rainwear as well. It's always getting solid. In fact, I was wearing it to work this morning because we were getting that inch plus of rain I was talking about, and I was walking to work in it this morning. So that's a good tip alone, just on picking up the solid colors, which I do. I'm curious. I mean, you kind of mentioned how watertight the Seek is, but when you look at it and look at the breathability ratings, which aren't just theoretical claims, and you can elaborate on what First Lite does to validate breathability and water resistance, but it still has 38K breathability, which is incredible for the protection that it offers. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, that's just kind of one of the cool things about that 37.5 tech. Like I said, it's really hard to beat. If you compare it to a lot of other 3.5 layer jackets, when I hand that thing to somebody, the only thing that I get is like, "Oh, are you sure?" Because it's really light compared to a lot of 3.5 layer jackets. Whereas if you grab a lot of something else on the market, it's substantially heavier, and I think some folks equate that with how waterproof the thing's going to be. Like a Helly Hansen, kind of rubber rainwear type of deal. But yeah, this is an incredibly breathable shell. But it is as waterproof as you will ever need. So when we were testing, I had a buddy. So everything gets out in the field 8 months to a year prior to going to the market. That like I said, like you get in these like classroom situations where you're coming up with all sorts of problems. Really what you need to do is like stop, get things in the field, and see what happens in the real world conditions. And I had a buddy up in Catch Camp, and they got like 8.5 inches of rain in 48 hours. And he was a commercial fisherman, and he wore that Seek jacket. Seek is an acronym for Southeast Alaska. And he was dry as a bone with 8 inches of rain in 48 hours. So not what we designed it for at all, but certainly nice to hear that it works. And I promise you'll be a lot more comfortable in a jacket that breathes like that over something that's technically more waterproof and way less breathable.
Yeah. Awesome. While we're on the topic of jackets, and this is kind of a complete shift from talking waterproof, breathable shells, but something that's brand new for 2017 that I wanted to talk about and hear about was the Sawtooth hybrid jacket, which it looks like a super interesting piece. I've ordered mine, don't have it yet, but I would just love to hear more about this and kind of, the ideal use case. I know it looks like it'd be a great early mid-season jacket, even for tree stand guys, but do you see a backcountry application for this piece as well? And kind of tell us, the listeners, about it for those who aren't familiar with it, haven't seen it.
Yes, I definitely backcountry use, and Steve, I'll point to you again, but a lot of our stuff, there's kind of, you got to have a little bit of a leap of faith. Like when you leave the truck at the trailhead, you got to be like, okay, I might be miserable, but I'm going to leave this behind. And I'm only going to stick with this. And the sawtooth is going to be one of those jackets. It's, I think we're going to have to really step up the education level on this piece, because I think a lot of people are going to look at it and be like, oh, I'm not sure where it fits. But so we've had this Labrador sweater, heavyweight, full zip sweater for a long time. I love the thing, but it's never my backcountry piece. It's always a like upland bird or a round town type of jacket. And we've always thought like, it's too heavy for the backcountry. You want something a little more versatile. So we used a lighter weight wool, like basically off the hoodie, made a full zip hoodie out of it, put, I should have brought my notes. I think 40 grams of insulation on the chest, and then a nylon face on the chest, so it blocks the wind really well. You have insulation on your core. You have, no insulation other than the merino over your kidneys, up your back, where your backpack's going to be. I definitely find that a lot of manufacturers out there don't account for your pack. And man, when you're carrying, 40, 50, 60 pounds of gear, that pack is a major, major insulator. Most hip belts on the market are major insulators, right? You're carrying around a lot of, between your lumbar and your hip belt, you're carrying around a lot of insulation over areas that a lot of blood's moving through. So, you don't have to wear much. But the sawtooth jacket is, we've been calling it the hybrid for, a year now, and we've been having it in the field, and it's just a crazy versatile piece, but you are going to have to like take this leap of faith and wear just your merino t-shirt on underneath, and you can never take that jacket off. It's really slick. Now, I will tell you, I'm like, I've kind of referred to it as like my approach jacket or my cruising altitude jacket. And what I mean by that is like when I get up on the ridge top, I'll put that thing on and I never have to take it off. But if I'm really putting the screws down, gaining elevation, with my full pack on, I'm typically in something lighter. But then once I get to, top of the ridge, cruising altitude, I can put that thing on, and, that's where I'm doing my real hunting, right? So you're in, slow hunt mode, lots of stopping. This thing's been incredible for me. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get that one out and test it out here as soon as you guys get them in.
Yeah, well, you'll have to get me your notes. Like I said, it'll be a little tricky for some folks, and just to see where it fits. But like I said, it is incredibly versatile. And I also see like this, Mark, as you said, early season or early to mid tree stand application, because it is very quiet. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's going to be just an incredible upland bird, like late season, open prairie pheasant jacket. I think it'd be kind of the ultimate pheasant jacket, because again, no insulation where your bird vest is, and blocks the wind up front. And, nice light swing your shotgun jacket.
Yeah. How did you integrate that just personally into your layering system, Ryan, as you were testing that, this past season and getting out in the field? Like, did you find that it replaced a certain piece for you, or how did your system sort of change with this jacket in the mix?
I went 40 days straight. So I used it 40 days. And I definitely took way too many clothes too much clothes.
It's field testing though, right? Like it's part of the job
Yes,
for you.
it
You
is.
gotta have
Man.
the whole kit, right?
Yeah, I hate it. Like to me, there's trying to refine your kit, as I know you guys do. Like you're always kind of, I have field notes out there, and I'm always taking notes. And did a grizz moose hunt up in BC this year, and I had way too many clothes on the mountain. Like, I never got to the bottom of my clothes bag, which it's always nice to kind of have something in reserve, like as more of like a mental, like, okay, if it gets worse, I still have this. But when you have like 4 things in reserve, that's not good. So the sawtooth definitely eliminated, because oftentimes I'll hike in just a merino t-shirt, and then we have this Halstead Tech fleece, which is a grid fleece. It's very light, lots of insulation for the warmth. Actually blocks the wind really well. I ditched that. I ditched the Chama hoodie, which is like sinful because that thing's definitely like one of the hands down best things we make. But yeah, so just merino t-shirt, that sawtooth jacket, and then I'm kind of a skinny guy that time of year, so I'll do like Incompatible puffy, Incompatible vest, and probably a shell. If I'm really sitting and looking. I mean, BC in October is not a suntan type of place, so
yeah, that's interesting. I'm interested to test it and see kind of where it lands for me, because I'm just such a Lano, Shama, and Compagre all September. Like that's just like you can't go wrong. And so I'm interested to see where this will integrate. Like if I know it's going to be a bit more mild, maybe I can leave the puffy and rely on the sawtooth. It's just going to be really cool to see how that plays out. I'm interested to see how it performs for me.
Yeah, one thing I feel like we do a really good job communicating at First Lite is, everybody's we're not going to make any claims like this is the best thing for everybody on the planet, because that's just in the case, not for boots or backpacks or clothes. It's, everybody runs different. So, we're definitely going to have some folks that think the sawtooth is the best thing since sliced bread, and some folks are probably going to think it's a little too warm or whatever. But it is worth taking a look at. I was very, very impressed.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so let's keep rolling with kind of some of the new gear specifically for 2017. We just mentioned the Incompatible Puffy, which has been around for several years now. I've been a huge fan of, but now you guys added the pants to the lineup. So tell us about that. It's kind of interesting to see the insulation piece come over on the bottom side of things. Tell us about that pant.
Man, I have wanted these pants forever. Right up there with my fingerless gloves is the #1 new product request. So,
dude, those are awesome. The hobo gloves, as I affectionately call them.
Yeah, smoker gloves, as they call them in Canada. So, Uncompatible pants, same construction as the jacket. The #1 comment that I get with these things is, but my legs don't get cold. You need to spend 2 minutes in a pair of these, and everybody is the exact same. They go, oh my God, my legs do get cold. This is just a simple, lightweight piece of gear that allows you to sit behind glass still for an extra couple hours. And, I love getting into spots and watching big mule deer, and it's important to remember that the mule deer are doing the exact same thing on the other side of the mountain, is sitting there just watching. And so if you have to stand up and do jumping jacks all day long, you're probably not going to see Mr. Big. And so that's what this extra piece of kit does. It really allows you to just stay still and set up for longer. Windproof, super water resistant. That's another cool thing that we never talk about. I always say I have too many cool stories and not enough time to tell them. But the insulation that we use throughout the line is like, it dries faster than any insulation on the market. If you were to get it wet, the insulation itself moves moisture. So, your puffy jacket will pull moisture. Like if you put the screws down and you're all sweated up by the time you get to the top of the ridge, pile on these insulated jackets and it'll suck the moisture out of your base layer. And then you just flip that thing inside out and the breeze will dry those things out in minutes. But the puffy pants, I didn't bring, all the way through the end of November this year, I did not bring a pair of long johns because I had the puffy pants and I hate long johns. So these go on over the top of your pants. You don't have to get bare-arsed out there in the woods to ditch your long johns on a major temperature swing day. They go on super fast, take them off super fast, stuff them in your pack, and away you go. So I know some folks look at them as like this extraneous piece of gear, but I promise you can ditch some layers because of them, and you're going to be kind of lighter and faster because of it. I'm very, very happy that we put these in the line.
Yeah, it looks like they're just over a pound. In terms of packability, how do they compare size-wise to the jacket once packed? I assume that they're, a little bit larger of a package, but not so much so, or?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. It'd be very, very comparable.
They're pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're not distinguishable from each other in my pack.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's nice. And then I'm just thinking too, like late season, it's cold, maybe there's snow, maybe there's melting snow, something like that. And you kind of mentioned the water resistance, but particular in the seat, if a guy doesn't have a glassing pad or something and sits down, is there kind of any reinforcement on the seat or anything to be sitting and glassing in these pants?
Yeah, we actually took the same material that we use in the Vapor Stormlight jacket and put it on the butt.
Nice. Perfect.
For that. But I don't understand not having a butt pad. That's like a crucial piece of gear. You need to have one. Cut up your old Z-Rest and make a butt pad out of it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes. Yeah, happier camper. Steven, have you used puffy pants in the past?
I never have. I literally pack like 2 sets of long johns if I'm going on a late season hunt. I'm interested to try them out. Definitely, I kind of November backpacking, something like that. I foresee it. I don't know. Were you using them in September or when on a cold morning or more late season?
Man, yeah. They'll be with me all the time.
Really?
Yeah. It just makes it's kind of a sickness once you try them. Like, it's going to be obsessive compulsive, just like the jacket is, right? You're just not going to leave it. But the Arrow Wool, the 3/4 length long johns that we make, I wear those, from probably mid-October through about now. So,
okay.
I'm wearing those things all the time. I mean, they're so lightweight and breathable, but that's for backcountry purposes. That's as heavy a long john as I'll pack anymore.
No pack. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Now, like, different out, like, super ski days when you got a lot more wind chill going 60 miles an hour. The heavier weight long johns that we make, like those EXPs are, incredible. But, those are pretty much relegated to, like steelhead days for me at this point. So.
Gotcha.
Cool. Also new on the pants side is the Obsidian, which a lot of guys are obviously going to be going, okay, this is just the new Canal. It's the merino bottom, something that First Lite's kind of cut their teeth on, started on, been famous for, but the Obsidian's new for 2017. Kind of walk us through the differences here, Ryan.
Oh, man. Well, visually, the pockets are different. So, there's not that much to it, but the cut's a little bit different. Like, it's a little more articulated in the waist, in the hips, and the knees. It's getting closer to the pant that we initially envisioned. The Canabs started out as this thing called Gila. 2009-ish, maybe. This is like the most researched R&D pant on the planet, I'm convinced. We set out to make, an ultralight woven merino wool pair of pants because these things regulate your body temperature better than anything else. It's incredible. Like, people come up to me all the time. They're like, oh, I call them like my hunting pajama pants. They're unbelievable. I sleep in them half the time. But with the really thin merino, the major drawback that we always had was durability. And merino's not cheap stuff. So we're dealing with $180 pair of pants that, unless you're built like me, like tall and skinny, you're probably going to blow the things up. So we've just been constantly working on the fit, and we're constantly making tweaks. We sell out of them every single year, so we're able to keep tweaking things. And at this point, we are closer to the original concept. So we removed, because we're always working on, like the fabric side of things, how to, enhance this merino product, that we've actually got the fabric much more durable to where we've taken out some of the liner material that we put in there just for durability on the butt and the knees. So those areas are going to breathe a lot more, and that's where you get sweated up primarily, is your butt. And so yeah, I'm super excited about it. But visually, the pockets are going to resemble like our corrugate pants, where they're the kind of double layered pocket on the hips and not so much on the thighs. Which shooting recurve is kind of a bummer for me, because on top of thigh pocket, I could put the tip of my bottom limb in the crease of that pocket, and it'd just sit there and rest right about draw height for me, which was perfect. So now I got to figure out something else to do. But I'm excited for these. They're just a game-changing pant, and I've got them out on some very big dudes, and all the feedback has been phenomenal. So.
Awesome. So it's just a continued evolution of of, what guys know as the Canal, but with improvements for sure.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. And, it's completely unique pant. I mean, there's nothing in the outdoor world similar to it. And so we make this pair of pants, for those that don't know, out of nylon, called the corrugate guide pant. Tons of stretch, super durable. The only time I wear those things is when I know I'm going to be wet for the duration of a hunt, because wool's just harder to dry. But it takes a lot for me to get out of the Canals. Those are my number one for 90 degrees to -10. So
awesome. So we certainly couldn't talk 2017 without mentioning Cypher, which is a new camouflage pattern. If we go back a year or so in this podcast, we actually have talked a fair amount about Fusion, which is the first proprietary pattern that you guys came out with. And then Cypher is an extension of that, I guess, for 2017. Shares a lot of the same fundamentals in terms of the ideals of camouflage design. But Ryan, kind of walk us through what are the big ticket items that First Lite is trying to accomplish with a camouflage pattern strategically, and then kind of walk us through the distinctions that Cypher is from Fusion.
Thing that we're always trying to be very conscious of, and coming from like this ASAT camouflage background where you put ASAT next to anything, and whatever pattern it is turns into a big blob. So that was definitely, first and foremost when we were developing the Fusion pattern, is we need something that is versatile and it breaks up that outline, it breaks up that blob, at any distance. And basically what we found is, low light first thing in the morning, in open country, Fusion kind of had this tendency to be very dark. And then once the sun hit it, it was phenomenal. So at that point, we started working with some different color palettes to try to open it up. So we actually expanded the base pattern that, we kind of have this tagline we use around the office, which is same science, new pattern. And it really is. The basis of Cypher is the base of Fusion. And Fusion has been an incredible success. Cypher has those same elements. Let's see. So the breakup elements of Fusion are expanded on the Cypher pattern. It's going to combat any of that tendency to blob that a lot of patterns have. And then, a lighter color palette. And it's been honestly kind of an interesting thing from a marketing perspective, because that pattern works 100%. Fusion works 100%. We really want, the consumer to figure out which one works for them in their situations. Because, we developed Fusion for Idaho. And some of the first pictures that we got back were guys in tree stands saying, this is the best, oak pattern we've ever seen. And, we're going to see a lot of that with Cypher as well. We've had a lot of guys, on the East Coast and maples with the foliage off, where it's all of a sudden, this Cypher pattern just totally blends in and looks like these muted autumn colors and open canopies. So, really we just relied on the science of it. And we're going to let the let the hunter figure out where to use them.
Anything else that we didn't hit in terms of something new for 2017? Exciting. I know that there's some other products and certainly a lot more in the lineup in general that we could spend a few hours talking about. But anything for 2017 that we didn't hit that you'd love to cover?
Yeah, the women's line, we're super pumped on because, we're building it exactly like we built the men's line. So, it's all incremental, and we're making sure that things get tested right, and, relying on our feedback and adding key pieces every year. And the feedback's been phenomenal. And so it's kind of an exciting thing around the office because it's, like I said, it's like First Lite 2.0. We're kind of rebuilding a line. So
you guys added a puffy and the rain jacket for the women's line this year. Is that right?
Yeah. So like a women's version of the Vapor Storm line. So lightweight shell, and then women's Incompatible puffy. Basically, there are some differences. Like the men's has no insulation in the armpits and lighter weight insulation in the hood, whereas the women's has heavier weight insulation in the hood and insulation in the armpits. Just purely off of development feedback is lots of women in the field get colder a little bit faster than the guys. So
yeah. And clearly, listeners who aren't familiar with seeing this, we don't want to at all give the impression that those are the differences. I mean, the cut on the women's line is certainly for the women. It's not a smaller size of the menswear.
Yes, yeah, no, that is the main point.
Yeah,
not just an additional point. Yeah, it absolutely is. It is a women's jacket. We just kind of get carried away because the stuff needs to be every bit as burly as the men's. It needs to be thought through every detail as much as the men's. So I just kind of glossed over the fact that yes, it is cut and tailored for the female form.
Yeah. Cool. That's exciting, man. It's cool to see. It's just cool to see that line grow. It's awesome that there's demand for the women's line. It's just super cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, we have lots of exciting stuff happening. So hard to keep track of. The one downfall. Getting the stuff in the field for testing is the best possible way to do it. The downfall is because we're basically a year out by the time it hits the field to the time it gets to a finished product in the market, is we're kind of thinking 2 years ahead on a lot of things. So it's getting, we're getting bigger. It's getting hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah, man. All the cool stuff happening right now, you can't even tell us about, essentially.
Yes, but hopefully we'll get you guys a piece or two to give me some feedback on.
Cool.
Yeah,
sounds
absolutely.
Good. Well, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear two things from you, Ryan, moving from the product side of things. One is just, what's the best memory of this past hunting season for you? Kind of the best trip, the best moment, the best story, what have you. What's the best memory that's going to stick with you?
It's kind of a funny one. I had killer season. We had definitely saw a few things I'd never seen before, but I made her back home. A buddy of mine's having a baby, and so we was like, hey, it didn't look like we were going to be able to hunt together. So we like, listen, you're having a baby, you got to make this happen. I got home for 2 weekends in a row back to Montana and did a couple of pretty hellacious hikes over the course of 6 days ultimately. And I shot my first bull with a rifle since high school. First elk with a rifle since high school. And, you know, that was fun and all, but I'm not sure if you guys have ever got one, but I got a hemorrhoid for the first time in my life.
Oh.
And
this is not where I expected the things to go when I asked this question, but please continue.
Well, yeah, so I was all freaked out. I had no clue what it was. And, you know, so I was, you know, up on top of this mountain, like, you know, kind of feel like I had a ping pong ball in between my butt cheeks. And we ended up shooting this bull, and you know, it was a cool deal because up there with this buddy of mine, and, you know, as you get older, it's harder and harder to stay connected and keep things going. And we've had this long history of, you know, being pretty successful and getting to hunt together every year. And we were kind of recounting some tales and stuff. And in the tent that night, it finally got cold. You know, it was like 60 degrees all November, it felt like. And this weekend, it was about 7 degrees. And had a little stove ripping inside the tent and sitting there, you know, talking things over. And it was like, oh, shoot. This buddy of mine's named Kyler. I was like, yeah, Kyler, it's real good being up here with you, man. I'm glad we can make this happen. It's like, yeah, buddy. He's like, just you, me, and the Roid. Which I thought was pretty darn fun. Yeah. Not the best hiking experience, but it was a good hunt. So.
Yeah, one day somebody's gonna be looking at that bull and like, oh yeah, I shot him up on Hemorrhoid Hill. It was a good hunt.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So you get quite a bit of field time, and you know you've been hunting for years and years. I'm just curious. The question we love to throw out to guests is, what's one thing that you are still learning or still trying to improve upon?
Oh,
not that
man.
There's only one, because you know that story never ends. But what's something that comes to mind?
You know, this is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Like, I will never be anywhere near as proficient, as good as I want to be in the woods. It just will never happen. But, man, the mistakes are what get you incrementally closer to where you want to be, right? And all I do is make mistakes, and I make so many of the exact same mistakes every single year. And man, if you don't think you do, you're lying to yourself.
So what is that thing for you? Is it like being impatient? Is it, you know, being, you know, what is the mistake, or kind of the category of mistake that you continue to struggle with?
Oh, well, I mean, all of the above, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, knew I shouldn't have moved. Oh, should have moved earlier.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't have called them. Oh, definitely should have gone with the bull instead of the cow. You know, it's all that stuff. You know, the only, you know, the only thing I could never critique anybody on is when to pull the trigger, right? So it's like, don't pull the trigger until you're absolutely positive that animal's going to die. So I'll never ask anybody why they didn't shoot. And you know, I feel like I'm pretty good on pulling the trigger. So that's about the only thing I'll pat myself on the back on. You know, that come out of the woods way more often with nothing to show for it, but I'm certainly not into pulling the trigger unless I know something's going to connect. So everything else is much more a work in progress than I could say is closer to perfection. That's for sure. So
yeah. Well, let's end on one note of perfection, and certainly, probably one of the most important points of the podcast. Last piece of advice I'd love to get from you, Ryan, and that is how to grow a mustache.
It comes and goes. You gotta burn it to the ground every once in a while. Man, I've always wanted like a big mountain man beard ever since I was a little kid, and I cannot grow a beard.
Well, you have
but I can grow a
mustache.
So, yeah.
That's good.
Try as you may. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, we appreciate the time. Obviously, firstlite.com. You guys are obviously active on Instagram, Facebook, all those cool places. Anywhere else that you would encourage listeners to go check out the products or anything?
Oh yeah, I mean, don't take my word for it. There's lots of good reviews. There are lots of reviews out there. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to do your own research, and we have killer retailers as well, and lots of really knowledgeable folks. So, don't be afraid to hit up Steve at SNS Archery. Guy spends a lot of time in the woods. I don't know how, because he's got the whole wife and kids thing going on. So.
Yeah, it's getting harder.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thanks for taking the time, taking a break from making some dust on your home improvement project and joining us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for listening to the Hunt Backcountry podcast. To access the show notes for this episode and subscribe to future episodes, please visit exomountaingear.com/podcast. We always value your feedback and would love to hear about any questions, topic suggestions, or comments you have. Our email address is podcast@exomountaingear.com. If you're enjoying the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. By doing so, you will be entered into our next Exo Mountain Gear swag giveaway. And speaking of giveaways, we also have that shooting book giveaway from Ryan Kleckner. To enter for that, go to exomountaingear.com/shooting book. We're always looking forward to the next episode and hope you guys are as well. But a note on that, if you're listening to these episodes week by week as they come out, I regret to inform you that we will be skipping next week, the first week in May, just due to a bunch of travel schedules and crazy things like that. But we have so many great episodes in the pipeline, interviews that we've already recorded that we can't wait to roll out for you guys. So be sure to subscribe and tune back in soon. Okay, until then, hope you guys get outdoors, maybe chase some bears, pick up some sheds, chase some wild turkey that time of year. Enjoy the spring. We will catch you on the next episode.